Chapter 18. Under Lantern Light. At an event the same evening on the day that Julian and Amelia had visited Ashbury House, the music softened and footmen signalled to the guests that the outdoor spectacle was transitioning to the inside, where guests could now exchange the cooler evening air for the warmth of indoors and refreshments at card tables. The hundreds of lanterns that had been the outdoor lure just moments earlier were now entertaining just one person while gently swaying in the wind in the garden. The lantern reflections shimmering in the ornamental pond captivated Evie as she watched the lights flicker and move while deep in thought. A hush lingered, decorated by the distant din of the crowd laughing and chatting inside the estate, the air touched by the scent of roses and early summer rain. Evie needed the air, her cheeks still flushed from conversation and candlelight. Her expression was pensive, almost wistful. Despite this being a smaller party, it was still larger than she normally attended. Her gift was in full force, and she desperately needed a respite from the swarm of emotions and intentions that had filled the rooms earlier. She clasped at her shawl, gazing toward the garden paths. Society expectations were not a problem in small doses in smaller crowds. The expectation to smile, to charm, to sparkle when prompted. But the quiet always called her back. It was there she could breathe, think, feel her own feelings instead of feel the intentions of others. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned, somehow already knowing who it was before she saw him. "I wondered if you'd attend tonight." "I'm flattered you thought of me, Evie. I'm accidentally fashionably late. I was beginning to wonder if the night had stolen you away from me, or if you'd already left for home," he said softly. "Would you have sent search parties, Your Grace?" "Only one," he whispered. Their eyes met, a smile in hers, something deeper in his. A pause followed, comfortable yet electric. He glanced back toward the terrace doors. "I hadn't realized how noisy these gatherings had become until I stepped outside. They're even louder when one is pretending not to listen." She smiled a cryptic smile. Julian raised a gentle brow. "You make even that sound like an art form." She glanced toward the pond, anywhere but at him. The moonlight painted silver across the water, causing the lantern dance to grow more luminous. "The ton is talking about you and your brother. They say your kindness is legendary, and your philanthropy commendable." Julian shook his head. "Don't believe the gossip. It's fashionable to be complimentary toward a duke." Evie laughed at that. Julian shrugged lightly. "Gabriel would argue that kindness is my only redeeming quality." She shivered at how his voice made her feel. It was like warm honey. She could get used to that voice, but it's a rare one, too rare. Evie looked out across the water again. He studied her face. He was looking beyond the ethereal beauty others noticed first, at the stillness beneath it. She seemed almost too beautiful to be real, and yet she was the most real individual he'd ever met. As he studied her, the world seemed to contract to fit the space between them. "Is it possible for kindness to be a burden, I wonder?" he asked lightly. "It can be. It asks more of you than indifference ever will," she said easily. Silence. Then quietly, he said, "You sound as though you know that from experience, Evie." She hesitated. A flicker of pain or memory crosses her eyes, then faded. "A few. It was a part of growing up, I suppose. No good deed goes unpunished, or something like that," she teased. His gaze sharpened slightly. thoughtfully. He took a small step closer, his voice becoming more gentle. You make it sound as though creation costs you something. Her breath caught at realizing his unintended insight. Everything worth making does. The moment stretched. A lantern flared nearby, wind brushed through the roses. Then I hope one day you'll paint something only for yourself, without fear. She met his gaze, startled, as if he had understood more about her than is possible. Her voice, when it came, was low and shaky. Perhaps I already have. He understands, not fully, but enough to feel its weight. Neither moves, their reflections waver on the pond's surface. Who are you, Lady Evangeline Winthrop? Who are you, really? He asked softly, his eyes piercing through the dusky night sky. I become increasingly more intrigued by you, and even more enchanted. He reached softly for her hand, cradled it in his larger one, and lightly played with her delicate fingers, as if they might have all the answers to his questions. He looked up suddenly, almost as if they had. You are special. I am not, Your Grace. He looked into her eyes sweetly, admirably, as if he were unable to drag his eyes from hers. It wasn't a question, Evie. He smiled gently, bowed, kissed her hand, and left her there, slightly bereft. She watched him walk away, admiring his stylish and quietly confident gait. And for the first time in a very long time, she yearned for something she couldn't define. But she was highly aware it was something she couldn't have. If love began anywhere that night, it was not in words, but in the silence between them. That fragile, perfect stillness where truth began to take shape. Chapter 19. The Gallery Unveiling. Candlelight glints off gilt frames. Murmurs of workers and conversations ripple through the air. All of the newly restored portraits, along with the new paintings of the Dukes, Amelia, and their grandmother, are grandly hanging on the walls for the family's viewing. The artist had breathed life into the Blackhaven portraits. The works were said to be the talk of London. Despite the privacy of their gallery debut, word had somehow gotten out and was being served through Mayfair tea rooms as smoothly as the Bohea tea. Across the room, Gabriel, Julian, and Amelia stood near the portraits. Amelia's curls gleamed under the chandeliers. Amelia's eyes were reverent with wonder. Papa, Mamma looks happy. Gabriel shot a look over toward Julian, looking equally surprised and grateful upon hearing his daughter's words. She does, Poppet, and she looks to be infinitely proud of you. I think the artist has given us a small miracle. Julian and Gabriel exchanged similar sentiments as they both studied the finished painting of Julian's sister-in-law. The likeness is perfect, and yet somehow deeper than mere accuracy. Julian's eyes shifted to the next painting, his own likeness. Strange, isn't it, to see ourselves through another's eyes? Indeed, and to see those dearest to us. Gabriel added, it's moving, as though whoever painted them saw beyond what was visible, saw something I'd known, but never gave voice to. Gabriel squeezed Julian's shoulder, smiling faintly. Perhaps that's what art is for, brother, to remind us we still have hearts. Julian smiled at that, but his gaze suddenly drifted through the crowd, scanning the gallery as if she'd be there, standing quietly, watching him in the way she does, drawing him in with her up-tilted eyes that seemed to see through him, into him. He could almost see her soft blush, the tilt of her head, the way candlelight clings to lights in the staggered gold in her hair. He shook his head as if to clear it of ghosts. He did not know why he looked for her, only that the sight of her seemed to steady him, as if she were part of the truth the paintings had whispered. He turned back to Gabriel. "I agree, brother. I think it's more than skill that stirs people." True. The artist who painted those portraits saw something from a distance that even the world forgets to notice up close. Gabriel turned toward Julian as he spoke, pausing as if he wanted to say more, but changing his mind. Julian noticed, but set it aside due to the moment itself. Perhaps that's what art is meant to do, to show us what we already feel but cannot name, Gabriel said in a low voice. Julian looked up again at the portraits. Then I envy the artist, though it appears they ration their creations. Word from the town is that the artist's commission acceptances are rare indeed, that this commission was highly unusual. Gabriel looked over at Amelia and smiled softly. "I'll not question our good fortune, only accept it with eternal gratitude." Chapter 20. Later, after the unveiling. The London streets outside Ashbury House were hushed. Soft rain tapped at the window panes. A single candelabrum burned low in the sitting room, adjoining the Duchess's music chamber. Evie entered, cloak dampened from the mist, her expression caught between triumph and fear. Evie had heard high praise from the gallery about the final unveiling of the commissioned portraits. And yet, as her carriage drew away from the back alleyway of the gallery, Evie had felt the old unease stirring, the one she thought she'd left behind in Florence. She set down her gloves and turned toward the faint sound of harp strings. Her mother, the Duchess Olivia Wintham, sat by the fire playing softly, a melody that seemed to breathe peace into the room and calm some of Evie's frazzled edges. Without looking up, Olivia said, "I thought I might find you wandering the gallery until dawn." Evie smiled. "I wanted to, but I was worried about being noticed." Olivia's fingers stilled on the strings. She looked up, concern soft in her eyes. "Ah, that feeling again. It's stronger than before, Mama. Tonight, in that room before they arrived, I could almost feel the paintings. It was as though they touched me in return." Her mama reached out to touch her hand. That's what happens when the heart gives more than the hand intends. "It frightens me, Mama. They were meant to bring comfort, not awaken. Whatever it is, I stir. I was in the back room, sight unseen, but I could feel Julian looking at his portrait, as though I were in the same room with him. As if he knew. He doesn't, though. Not yet. And even if he did, perhaps it would not be the disaster you imagine." Her mama said softly, "You say that because you can control your gift far better than I. You can choose what you play, what you let the music awaken. I cannot. I paint what I feel. And it seems of late, I feel too much." Olivia looked at her wisely. "And that is your burden, and your beauty. But listen to me, my darling. The world will never stop misunderstanding what it cannot name. You mustn't shrink too small, only to make them comfortable." Evie dropped down onto the settee beside her, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to hurt anyone, especially not him." Olivia sat down beside Evie, wrapped her arm around her, and stroked her hair. "Then you won't. Love does not break what is meant for it. It mends in its own time." Evie leaned into her mother's shoulder. The firelight flickers across their faces. She started crying as her mother comforted her. "Mama, I cannot risk hurting him. I care too much." For a while, they sat in silence. Later, Olivia went back to her harp. The harp hummed softly beneath her hand, the notes curling like warmth around Evie's fears. And she found herself wishing, foolishly perhaps, that love might be as kind as her mother believed it to be, but feared it would only wound. Chapter 21. The Visit. Several days passed after the gallery unveiling. Ashbury House. Evie had withdrawn. Julian was at his wit's end, not knowing what to do. He had sent another note, polite, measured, and utterly inadequate. When her reply came, graceful in its refusal, he realized no letter could say what he needed it to. So he decided to visit her in person. Some truths must be spoken aloud, even if only once. Julian entered the grand foyer, raincoat glistening with droplets. A footman took his hat, his expression unreadable, but his purpose was clear. "Her ladyship will be with you shortly, your grace." He nodded, standing before the fire until Evie entered. She was composed, luminous, every movement careful, but her eyes betrayed the exhaustion of her restraint. "I hope I'm not intruding?" he asked quietly. "No, not at all," Evie fibbed graciously, "though I admit I didn't expect—" Julian smiled faintly. "Me to come in person today? Neither did I." A silence. The soft crackle of the fire. They regard one another with a kind of reverence. "Why are you here, Julian?" she asked softly. "I needed to see you. It's about the portraits." She stiffened slightly, uncertain as to what he's about to tell her. He looked at her questioningly, noticing her withdraw, but not understanding why. "When I first saw them, I couldn't explain it," Julian said slowly, thoughtfully. "It wasn't just likeness, it was recognition. As if the man in the frame saw me more clearly than I ever allowed myself to be seen." He looked toward her, his tone gentling, almost confessional. "Since that night, I've noticed I'm different. I find I can breathe again, laugh again, see light where I once saw nothing but duty. And then I realized that it all actually began, somehow, when I met you." Her eyes widened slightly, her breath shallow. She didn't speak. He continued, unaware of the revelation he was nearing. "You make me feel as though something long bound has been let loose, as though I am more than my grieving." The words hung in the air, trembling between them. Evie closed her eyes. Her throat tightened, her heart began pounding. She didn't answer. She didn't know how. Julian's breath caught as another realization dawned, quiet, awed, inevitable. There's duality in that. That's what the painting made me feel. It was you. It's always been you. She opened her eyes. They glistened. Fear and tenderness mingled. He steadily stepped closer, not demanding, only moved by a truth too large for denial. "You don't have to say anything. I only wanted you to know. Whatever it is you've given me, and I don't understand it, but I will guard it. I will guard you. You have my oath." Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. "You don't know what that means." "Then let me learn," he begged softly. Silence. The rain deepened. She looked at him, really looked, and for once did not hide what she felt. In her face, the storm, the light, the fragile vulnerability. Her fears were on display, unspoken. Her eyes cleared then, and everything he'd just seen in them was gone. "I cannot," she said flatly. Julian watched the resolve on her face and heard it in her voice. He stepped back suddenly, his face shuttered closed. but not before she saw the pain and mirrored rejection in them. Evie closed her eyes, ashamed. She'd not wanted to hurt him. But hadn't she just done that anyway?
Thank you for listening. We are so pleased for you to join us on our journey. Our story is a multiple episode Regency Romance Novella, so please do subscribe for next week's episode. The writer thanks you in advance for your comments, notes, and suggestions as we hope to improve with each episode and with each story. Until next time, may your days be filled with kindness and love.